I can't tell you how many people I coach who say to me, I just spent $1,500, $2,000 on a resume and I'm not getting any interviews and I'm stuck. And I say, okay, well, please let me see your resume. And I look and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
I know. It hurts.
the other thing that I think is really important that a lot of people don't necessarily do on their resume is they simply list their duties and responsibilities, but they don't list quantifiable, right? I planned, I managed, I supervised, but like, how many did you manage? What was the outcome of that? That's the biggest miss I think that happens on resumes. It's the lack of the quantifiable achievements.
This person asks, it's been 7 months since I left my last business with more than 30 interviews done. It seems to me that my industry that I'm looking to, there are chances declining and I don't really know what to do next. What should I do now and how should I potentially pivot my strategy?
This is a great question. I can give a great example. When I left Takeda after 18 years,
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Open to Work podcast. This is a really special episode because I am joined by fellow community leader Melissa Grabiner. Hello, Melissa.
good morning. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to finally record this. This is like our second attempt to try to do this. The first one we had significant technical difficulties, so it's such a pleasure to finally get you on the podcast. You've been a kind of a long-standing potential guest for us, so it's great to finally make this happen. So, Melissa, as you all know, we start every episode of this podcast with an interview question. And so for our audience, tell us about yourself as if you were in an interview.
Yeah, so I have about 20 years experience working in talent acquisition. I spent 18 years at a company called Takeda Pharmaceuticals, which is a global Fortune 500 biotech pharma life sciences company. I was the global talent acquisition director for our company's largest business unit. Prior to being in that role at the company, I was a senior HR business partner. What was really special about my role as in TA there was I built this department from inception. So I was basically given free reign to hire as many people as I needed. I had an open-ended budget. I was able to put together processes, technology, procedures, headcount. And I grew the department to being our largest TA department globally. And that was a great, great job. My company closed the Chicago headquarters where I'm located. They moved it to Boston. I was not looking to move because I had two boys in high school at the time. So I ended up leaving. And then since then, I've worked at two other jobs, both in talent acquisition. I am very active on LinkedIn. I have, I don't even know, 375,000 followers, give or take.
Yeah.
Use the platform to help and motivate job seekers. That's really what I use the platform for. And it's been a great experience. And Matt, I met people like you through LinkedIn. So, feel very blessed that this platform has really enriched my life in so many ways. On a personal note, I live in Chicago, Illinois. In the United States, I have two sons, both of them in college. I am also a yoga instructor. In my free time, which is not very, don't have a lot of free time. But again, thank you very, very much for having me today.
Amazing. And I think a lot of people that who are in the kind of LinkedIn sphere will know Melissa, as she said, like not that many people have over 300,000 followers on LinkedIn. I mean, why don't you tell us a bit about that story of gaining that many followers? Like, do you remember when did it kind of start? When did LinkedIn start to become part of your kind of routine, and when do you remember kind of the inflection point of it really taking off?
Yeah, so I always dabbled in LinkedIn, but very, very casually. And last year, I remember it was in October, actually. My husband was at work and he called me and he said, did you look at your LinkedIn? Do you realize how many followers you have? And I never really was hung up on my follower count. It was more for me to provide value. And he gave me the number. And then I ran upstairs to my computer. And by the time I ran upstairs, I gained like 15 new followers within like a 20-second span. And it was just insane. And my numbers started to grow about a year ago. And that's when companies started to reach out to me and say, we love your platform. We love what you post. Would you like to work with us? And so I started working with very select companies in sponsorships, but I'm very, very selective with the companies I work with. And that's when people started contacting me to be on their podcasts. And I started doing these LinkedIn Live events. And I remember when Andrew Seaman from the LinkedIn news team and careers team called me and said, I would love for you to be a guest on my podcast. I love what you post. That was when I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. So it really started to take off about a year ago. And I decided to use the platform as a way to help job seekers and motivate job seekers. I've been in talent acquisition for the majority of my career, and I noticed that the posts that did really well were those where I provided empathy and motivation and tips and tools. So I said to my husband, I'm going to use this platform as a force of good. And I'm going to do whatever I can using my experience and expertise in talent acquisition to help as many people as I can. And it just started going up, up, up in terms of my follower count. And it's never really slowed down. Through LinkedIn, I started a business helping job seekers because I was starting to get so many requests from people saying, I love your content. I'm looking for a job. Do you help with resume review? Do you help with LinkedIn profile optimization? And so on and so forth. So I started a small business a couple months ago. Really, really took off. I've had over 100 bookings with perfect ratings from every single person I've helped. So that's the most satisfying part to me, is really being able to help job seekers. But yeah, it sounds cliche, but LinkedIn has really changed my life.
Yeah, I think I know the kind of answer to this next question, perhaps. But if there are any other kind of budding kind of LinkedIn content creators out there, or people who are using this as part of their job search, what would be your? I guess those are two quite different audiences. Why don't we start with, if you're a LinkedIn content creator and you want to grow your following, like how would you? What would be your recommendations to those people?
Yeah. So, and this is what I tell people that I coach in terms of people looking to brand themselves and grow their followers, is that, first of all, it doesn't happen overnight. It took me a long time to grow my follower count to where it is. You also have to be committed. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I spend probably, and I'll admit this, I probably spend 5 to 6 hours a day on the platform. And I think it's really important when you post something on LinkedIn and people comment on your posts to actually respond to those comments. I feel very strongly that if people take the time to comment on my posts, that I should comment back. And so it's engaging in those back and forth conversations with people. And it's also about not just posting and sitting back and seeing who comments, but it's engaging with other people's content.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people that I follow on LinkedIn that I really love what they post, and I engage with their posts. But I
Hmm.
think the key thing for people to understand is that I didn't wake up one morning and had all these followers. There's a lot of work that
Yeah.
has to go into that for this to happen. You're not going to, again, close your eyes, open them, and have 370 5,000 followers. You have to be committed to the platform. And I'm not saying you have to spend 6 hours a day, but for people that are looking to grow their followers, they have to spend a couple hours a day. If not,
Mhm.
it's just going to take that much longer.
Yeah, and I would say, like, as someone who's also done an element of content creation, not everything, anything at your kind of scale, but who does create content as part of this podcast and as part of our community, it does take time and effort. But I think one of the things that I've kind of noticed is the rewards can be quite significant, aside from like starting your own business, etc. But we've met through the power of LinkedIn. This podcast started because I engaged with James's content and thought it was really thoughtful and engaging, wanted to meet him. Lots of people that, like, lots of kind of my new friends, I guess, in this world of recruiting that I've made over the past year as a result of posting more. That's all because of the work that I've done on LinkedIn, and people starting to recognize my thoughts and kind of want to engage with them more, and then want to meet me in person, and then want to reach out and connect. And you know this can accelerate in a really positive way, and there's good and bad sides to LinkedIn, obviously. But the friendships that I've made, genuine friendships from the people who I've met on LinkedIn, who I just never would have met otherwise.
Yes.
And I think I'd count you among them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I made a post recently about how LinkedIn has changed my life. It's interesting. I actually found my current job on LinkedIn. I sent a note to the CEO of my company. I lost my prior job. I was laid off. And when I was starting my job search, I put together a very strategic list of the companies that I was interested in working at. And I reached out to either, depending on the size of the company, I reached out to either the CEO directly or perhaps someone high up in talent acquisition. Um, and it's interesting because the company where I work, there was no job posting. I had no idea if my company was even hiring, but it was a company I had in the back of my mind for a long time. And I reached out to the CEO and I said, one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to hear back or I'm not. And if I don't hear back, at least I know I tried. But I did hear back. And 2 weeks later, long story short, I had a job interview in my hand. And so if you're using LinkedIn strategically and in the right way, it absolutely can help you land a new job, whether it's through networking, which to me is still the best way of finding a new job, through a job posting, but it's being engaged on the platform, forming relationships with people. So by the time you do see an opening or you're faced with a job search, hopefully you've built up a network of people at that
Yeah,
company, which I think would definitely help when you're, again, looking for a new position.
for sure. And so we've started to work together on a project called the Open to Work Community. In your own words, maybe why don't you describe what the community is and why you decided to get on board with it?
Yeah. So, for starters, I decided to get on board with it because it is a community that helps job seekers. That is the purpose of this community. My passion is helping job seekers, and it's what my career has mostly been based on. Part of the reason I wanted to join, Matt, because I think you're amazing, and I think you've really just your heart and soul is into this, and it is so evident how much you care. And the people that you have brought together to be like the Avengers or kind of the ambassadors are people that I all respect within the talent acquisition space. And I feel like we all have different strengths that makes this community work. But it's a safe space. It's a safe space for people to vent, which I think is so important when you are in a job search, that you feel like there are people that you could talk to. We provide help with resumes. We provide help with just any question that someone has. One of us, or if not most, multiple of us are going to respond to that person. And the purpose of this community is to help job seekers, for them to realize they aren't alone, that there are people that care, that there are people like our group that are going to do what we can to help them find a new job. And I think also, again, I have to hone in on, it's a safe space, right? We have a place, as you know, within the platform that people can vent, and we all need to vent when we're going through a job search, because searching for a job can be very stressful, it can be very difficult, it can be very emotional. So I can tell from the members that we have so far that they are finding a lot of value in this within our community. My hope and ideal situation would be that we continue to grow this community, because I think that we are providing a great service to people that really need it. Looking for a job is stressful, it's emotional, it's very challenging, especially in today's incredibly competitive job market. Having a platform like this, I think, could really, really help people land new roles and even just feel better about their situation.
Yeah, thank you for summarizing that so well. I mean, I think when I reflect back to kind of the reason why I wanted to start, obviously it's to help job seekers, but also I kind of noticed across the market that the job search content market is really fragmented, right? It's really hard to know who to go to get trusted advice from, and I think that's where we see a lot of people, and I did a post about this today, paying kind of an extortionate amount of money to work with people and get their CV reviewed or get coaching from people who haven't really worked in this industry and don't really understand necessarily a lot of this kind of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. And so partly kind of what I thought about was like, how can we create a really accessible, there is a price attached to it. It's $35 a month or kind of the different subscription tiers to it. But how can we create a really accessible place where that the advice that you're getting is trustworthy, where you can go to be supported by other people, where you can go to get advice from people who you trust and who have been in the seat, done the job before, who can give you direct advice. And actually, when I look back at some of the kind of advice that we give, and we have our own channel, which you can ask for all of our advice from, some of it's pretty on the nose. Like, it's not necessarily the advice that you want to hear. And that's like, that can be really hard for people to digest. Like, that there's not a quick fix, that there isn't a hack, that there isn't a shortcut to some of these outcomes that they're looking for. Because that's not what the job search market is. And there's a lot of people that sell, candy and roses and tell you, that you can get everything you want in life with just this one hack or trick or pill. And unfortunately, that's not what the job search is. And so we built this resource and community and platform to be a one-stop shop for all of your job search content. And I'm very grateful to have people like you who can contribute to making that a true one-stop shop.
Yeah, and I think part of the magic of the group is again the people who are, I guess I would say the Avengers or the small group of
Yeah, our,
people that
our admin channel is called the Open to Work Avengers, just for
yes,
anybody who wants to have a behind the scenes peek there.
yeah, and the Avengers are they're just the top of the top in this space. I respect everybody who's an Avenger. I think everyone adds value in their own way, and I think you take the collective strengths of all of us makes it that much more of a
Yeah,
powerful group. And I want to mention something that you said. One of the things that upsets me that I am starting to see more and more on LinkedIn are people preying on job seekers, people preying on the vulnerability of job seekers. And I can't tell you how many people I coach who say to me, I just spent $1,500, $2,000 on a resume and I'm not getting any interviews and I'm stuck and I don't know what else to do. And then I say, okay, well, please let me see your resume. And I look and I'm like, oh my
I
God,
know.
like, you
It
know,
hurts.
it really bothers me when I see some people preying on the unemployed, which is something that I'm so very much against. But I think what's so great about our open to work community is that you have true experts as Avengers. And I think there's a lot of value in that, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can give your resume to 10 resume writers or 10 career coaches, and you might get 10 different pieces of feedback. But I am so confident and so respectful of the Avengers in this group that I feel that everything that we provide to these job seekers is just spot on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so special.
We understand that people are going through really challenging financial times when they are looking for a job. And so finding that balance of like, should we charge people? How do we charge people? What is the right level of accessibility they should get? How can we support people at this price point is something that I've thought like really deeply about because I was so inherently uncomfortable with the idea of charging anyone who was in potentially a vulnerable position and couldn't afford it. And, I think about this challenge almost every single day because the idea of selling to someone who is struggling made me feel uncomfortable. But the reality is that this is the most competitive and most high value products I think you can get as it relates to a job search now. And also this podcast that we are on right now and supporting people with their job search and giving people ideas will always be free. And that's supported by sponsors who enable that to be free for everyone so that it can be a good use of our time and keep, our costs as low as possible. And make sure it's a high quality piece. And I think that's important that we all have and we all continue to give our advice away for free. And then people who want extra level of access can then pay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Matt, I think the what we charge is so incredibly reasonable.
It's
I
so
mean,
incredibly reasonable.
for the value these people are getting back in
Yeah.
return, it's a
Well,
steal.
yeah. I mean, I believe that that's, our job now, and we were talking about this before we came on the podcast, but like our job now is to try and support people in realizing the value, but realizing that, and marketing and talking about that value externally. Let's move on though. What do you see as like a common thread of question that keeps kind of coming up? What are the common threads for advice that you see people asking for in the community at the moment? So Alderson James are one of the leading people and talent agencies. Since 2013, they've been responsible for over 1,000 people and talent hires, including one in a company that I used to work at. They helped me hire my head of technology TA. So I know the guys there pretty well. They've been responsible for scaling some of the most innovative companies in the UK and the EU. Also recently just launched in the US. So even folks in your neck of the woods now, James, can get involved for contingent, retained, and executive search. And they also now do embedded through AJX. So they can do it all.
I think a lot of people simply want their resume reviewed and
Yeah.
want to make sure that the resume is. A lot of people talk about like applicant tracking system optimized. That comes up all the time. People have questions about. I interviewed at a company and I haven't heard back. Is it okay that I follow up? I see a lot of that. Or people have general questions about networking. I think I get a sense from a lot of people, and this is understandable, and I see this on LinkedIn as well, that people want to network, but they don't really know how to network or don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to take that first step. So I see we get a lot of questions about networking. A lot of it is what I love about this community. One of the things I love about this community is the vent area where you can vent about your job search. And I see a lot more of those sort of like messages and venting come out on the platform, which I think is really important because we all need to vent during a job search because it is such a stressful time. But generally speaking, a lot of our questions are around resume,
Mhm.
um, you know, quantifiable figures. I don't really have them in my job. How do I come up with them? Interviewing tips. We talk a lot about interviewing best practices, things like that. Really, the whole gamut of everything
Yeah.
from a job search, from the time that you lose your job and have to kind of think about how to go about your job search, all the way through to,
Yeah.
hey, I'm on my fifth and final interview. Wish me luck. Do you have any tips of how I can like kind of just like make sure that this happens? But that's the beauty of our community is that we cover so many different areas of a job search. It's not just one thing. We don't just talk about interviewing or just talk about networking. There's so much involved in a job search, and I feel like our community really covers all of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was great to see a couple of people going in for final interviews this week, and
Yeah.
you and I talking about the need to create an alumni kind of group of people who have successfully managed to find their job through our
Mhm.
support, and how do we kind of keep them engaged? It's such a great problem to have so quickly after launching it. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the CV channel for a second, because I think it is one of the biggest themes that we see kind of coming up is like, hey, like I'm applying for these sort of jobs, can you review my CV? And of course, we review the CVs. I tend to record like a short video. I'm kind of summarizing my feedback and their impact. But I found that there's a real consistency, and maybe this is potentially an unpopular thing to say, that candidates are self-centered when it comes to starting their job search. So when candidates start looking for their job, the first thing they do is say, okay, I need to write my CV. And so they go in and they write down all the best things they think they've ever done, and they're like, great, this is a CV. I've got loads of great things. I've been managing teams. I've been blah blah blah. I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm really proud of all these key achievements that I've written down. And they put it into a good format, and then they think they're done. And when we review, and I can always tell when someone's done that because it's not representative of what the external market is looking for most of the time. And the biggest disconnect I see when it comes to networking, when it comes to CV writing, is that you've written what you think your good best achievements are, but you've not thought about what the person on the other side of that is actually looking for. And so I keep reminding people to go and do this. We have a How to Get Hired book, which is in the community. And in chapter 2, we talk about this exercise of go and find 5 job descriptions and look at the responsibilities and requirements for those job descriptions and find the consistencies and
Yeah.
write your CV for those consistencies, because that's you doing a market mapping analysis of what people out there are looking for in their candidates, what people are out there. If they're looking for a senior software engineer, what skills are they looking for you to have? Why do they want you to have them? What scale are they looking to have them at? And then go and write specific examples of how you've done those things in the past. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden your CV will start to stand out because it's marketed to a specific audience.
Right.
And it's not like, and yes, you can still have your achievements and hopefully they're still on there, but at least those achievements are targeted towards a specific job search focus or area. And that lack of focus, that generalness that you're applying to your CV is probably your quiet killer. It's probably the reason why you're not getting that job is because you're marketing to everyone. And that means you market to no one. You've got to be
Right.
specific.
No, I absolutely agree. And when I coach job seekers, this is exactly what I tell them. I say, if you're applying for a specific position, take a look at the bullet points, take a look at the responsibilities, and how can you craft your resume to be a match. I'm not, what I say to these people is you don't have to be a perfect match to a job description. And as a matter of fact, I don't even like hiring people who are a perfect match because I feel like people need room to grow and develop into their career. So to me, like if someone's like a 70-75% match, maybe even 65% match, what I say to them is apply to the job, because most companies aren't looking for like that perfect, match from what they're looking for in the position is compared to what the candidate's experience is. But what I do tell my clients is that when there are specific jobs that you're applying to, take a look at the job description, take a look at, especially at the top of the job description, which is typically the most important, duties and responsibilities, and then it works its way down, and somehow incorporate that into your resume. The other thing that I think is really important that a lot of people don't necessarily do on their resume is they simply list their duties and responsibilities, but they
Yeah,
don't list quantifiable, right? You have to talk about here's what I did, but here's the impact of what I did, right? It's
100%.
not just, oh, I recruited 20 people. It's okay, what was your time to fill? What did you save any money? What was your efficiency? You increased efficiency by X%, or you decreased time to fill by X%. It's what are those quantifiable metrics, right?
Yeah.
What are the percentages? What are the numbers that shows the actual impact of your day-to-day job? Those are the resumes to me that stand out. And I think a lot of job seekers get this wrong is, you look at a resume, and this happens with the vast majority of people that I coach. They send me a resume they created, and I see none of that. I see, I planned, I managed, I supervised,
Yeah.
but like, how many did you manage? What was the outcome of that? That's the biggest miss I think that happens on resumes. It's the lack of the quantifiable achievements.
I couldn't agree more. And I think if I look back at the kind of the last 3 or 4 CVs that I've read, it's basically you kind of could have copy and pasted that exact response and put that into to most of them because it's really, really consistent. Um, I always I kind of have two things when it kind of comes to CV sometimes, and one of them is so what, right? If
Mm-hmm.
if I'm reading a bullet point, I ask myself of your CV, and I go, so what? So what that you managed a team? What do they do? What was the impact?
Right.
Why does it matter that like and I was reading a CV that said increased engagement by 20%. What does engagement mean? Why is that important to the business? What was the impact of having increased engagement? What was the
Right.
like? We need to really like challenge ourselves and be like it's quite a direct way to put it, right? Like so what? It sounds like quite aggressive, but like that's so that being that pointed is going to help you get the right outcome. And the other thing is like if your CV reads like a boring job description that we've all seen, like that you get frustrated about, then of course it's not going to read like of course you need to do more. Like it needs to be more than just listing out your duties to your point, because it's just that's never going to land. We are delighted to be sponsored by MetaView. MetaView is the AI assistant for the interview process. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations like interviews, intakes, and debriefs, and then provides a perfectly summarized note of everything that was discussed. That means that you can focus on creating human connections with candidates during calls and save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. I've spoken to so many recruiters and recruiting leaders who are loving using MetaView across their organizations. It's saving them time, but it also means that they have more data to make better decisions. So for every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can now make confident and informed decisions, and recruiters can finally take control of the interview process. The impact on candidate experience is also massive. Since recruiters don't have to worry about taking notes in the moment, they can really focus on being present and engaged with you. Forward-thinking recruiters at high-performing organizations like Brex, HelloFresh, and Quora are all leveling up their interviews with MetaView. So head on over to metaview.ai/open to work to get started for free on your first 5 calls. Let's just jump in then before we wrap up and maybe just answer a couple of questions, obviously anonymized questions from folks in the community. So I'll read them out to you, and these are genuine questions that we've received from folks in the community. So this person asks, it's been a month. It's been more than a month now with no interviews and no roles I've seen come up and be available. It seems to me that my industry that I'm looking to, there are chances declining, and I don't really know what to do next. It's been 7 months since I left my last business with more than 30 interviews done. What should I do now, and how should I potentially pivot my strategy?
It's a great question. It's probably a common question too. I think it's the first step is to really take a self-assessment and figure out, are there other things that you want to do? Are there other industries that you want to be in? And take a holistic approach and review of your job search. What have they been doing? What's been working? What's not been working? Maybe have a couple other people look at their resume. Maybe it's an issue with their resume. Maybe it's an issue with their approach. But I would say if being in a job search for many months is not uncommon. I think the average job search, at least from what I've been seeing lately, it could be up to 6 months, up to a year. But it's taking an assessment of, okay, this is what I've been doing, what's been working, what's not, and maybe it's
Mm,
thinking about shifting to a different industry. Maybe it's shifting into a different career, trying something new. Um, Again,
yeah,
it's a lot of it is just a self-assessment and a true understanding of, okay, what do I do next?
Yeah, and I totally agree. And what I said to this individual as they're trying to pivot into a new industry is really try and understand like what it is that you love about the industry that you're looking to do, and what are the adjacent industries around it that you could get excited by for the same reasons. But also like recognize that what's your financial runway. Have a real hard conversation with yourself. Like, how long can I do this for? Is that do I need to take an in between job? There's no harm in doing that in this
Mm.
market. Not like lots and lots of people are going to have taken jobs that are just going to get them through a period of time, and there's absolutely no requirements on that. And just because you don't get that industry pivot that you're looking to now doesn't mean that you can't in the future when the job market's a little bit more active. And so have a really good long hard kind of look at what self-assessment, right? But also do the personal self-assessment of how long can I do this for? What are the other lower hanging fruits that could potentially open up more doors for me than they are at the moment, and see how that where that kind of path takes me.
Yeah, I want to mention something real quick about what you just said about taking a part-time job. I think for many reasons this is a really good idea. I think that a lot of people gain their self-respect and their kind of their purpose through their job. And I think when
Mm-hmm.
you lose a job, a lot of times you kind of lose that purpose. And so taking a part-time job gives you a reason to get up. You're being productive, you're making money on the side. And I think it really helps your self-esteem as well,
Agree.
because I think a lot of times when people lose a job, their self-esteem is really hit. Working a part-time job also helps you gain additional skills that is also a resume builder. So to me, there's no harm in that. The other thing is that I never recommend to people that they spend 60 hours a week on their job search. They have to take breaks. They have to take care of their mental, physical, and emotional health. And I think sometimes taking a part-time job can really help with that as
Yeah.
well.
I agree, and for full transparency, I had like long conversations with my wife about whether or not I should go and work at the local cafe, and work at a
Mm-hmm.
local, and or get a bar job and stuff like that. Like these are real and important conversations to have, and if it's like providing for your life and providing for your family, there's no judgment associated with that. You
Right.
have to do what's right for you, and only you will know that. And you don't have to put all this stuff on your CV as well. You don't have to put it on your LinkedIn. Just keep it under wraps. Deliver what you need to do, get your kind of money through the door, get your mental health in order, and then continue to plug on in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, another question for you. Uh, Dear team, aside from using LinkedIn for networking, I was wondering what other methods people use to expand their professional network. Do any of you attend networking sessions, seminars, or similar events? I'm based in London and would appreciate any networking or recommendation events that you found valuable.
Yeah. So this is a great question. I'll tell you what I did. I can give a great example. When I left Takeda after 18 years, I went to two networking events within the first month. One was the Society of HR Management Chicago chapter, and then the other one was called HERMAC, the HR Management Association of Chicago. I was actually a guest speaker at the HERMAC event, and I actually called the president of the group and I said, "I know you have an event coming up. I'd love to be on your panel." Raised my hand. I was a panel speaker. Met a lot of great contacts through that event. I think networking events are great. I can't say that statistically speaking, it's a really strong way of finding a job, but what networking events do is they expand your network, right? And so there are people that I met at both of these events that I'm connected to on LinkedIn that I still talk to this day. I'm really good friends with the president of HERMAC because I reached out to her and said, I want to be on the panel, which she was really appreciative of. I think networking events are great. I also want to mention something real quickly in terms of how I approached my job search when I was looking for a job after 18 years. I literally took out a piece of paper. I had my husband do the same thing. We wrote down all of our friends, former colleagues, our relatives. We wrote down basically everyone we knew, friends from college, friends from high school. No joke. I reached out to everybody and I
Amazing.
said, here's my situation.
Heartfelt.
I'm looking for a new position. I was a global director of talent acquisition at Takeda. And it was through my network that I found my last job, as I said earlier. So I think when you are looking for a job, to tap into your network. And the other thing about networking, I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand. People want to help, right?
Mm.
There's no harm. There's no judgment.
Especially if
There's
they've
no
physically gone out
shame.
to attend a networking event as well.
What's that?
Especially if they've gone out to physically attend a networking event and
Yeah.
they've actually signed up for it.
Right. There's no harm in telling people you're looking for a job. I think most people genuinely care and genuinely
Mm.
want to help. The other thing about networking is this. Someone in your network might not be able to help, but maybe there's someone in their network right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that 6 degree of separation is that you might not know someone that is able to help you. But again, everyone in your network, they have a network and then
Yeah.
they have a network. So it kind of spiders off from there. That's why networking is so important.
Yeah, I always say to people that like the recommendation, like the outcome from networking is not to get a job, it's to speak to the next person.
Right.
Right. Like, and often, and I think in-person events can be really good ways to do that. Especially if you've started to create content and stuff like that on LinkedIn, they're like, it's so much easier for me to go to events now because like 3 or 4 people will just know me or I'll know them because I've become like more of an active presence on LinkedIn. And this person in particular, they come from the IT and like project management and Scrum industry. And like that is a very active networking scene as well. And also they have events that are specifically sponsored by recruiting companies that will go in and want to meet new candidates to help place them. And I've attended and made and created many of those events myself. So it's, again, like thinking about beyond just LinkedIn and like even just somewhere as basic as meetup.com, right? You can find local chapters for your type of any industry that you work in and go meet other people who will be able to introduce you to other people. And these networking events are really live and real opportunities to find opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was really great. I love that we got to talk about the community. We got to share some live examples. Hopefully, and if you're interested in signing up to the community, of course, you can head to www.opentowork.community. That's opentowork.community. And you can see little access of our platform, try a 5-day free trial. And hopefully we'll see you on there. We can start answering your questions very, very soon.
Thank you for having me as a guest. Open to Work community is the best community for job seekers. So anyone who's listening to this, please take a look into what we offer. I know we've been able to help so many people so far, and I can't wait to just continue this momentum.
Amazing. Well, I definitely have you back. I love the kind of Q&A format as well. So if you have any questions for Melissa or me, please write into opentoworkpod@gmail.com and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. And until next time, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and thank you all for listening and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.